This is Lucan Brattleby, and he's a first-year student at Hogwarts when we begin our journey in Hogwarts Legacy. Fans of the game had been concerned when previous footage seemed to only show students of mostly the same age as our main character, which had left many wondering whether or not we'd see younger students roaming the halls in Hogwarts Legacy. This is just one of the numerous reveals we got from the new gameplay showcase, which focused on the character creator, combat, and Hogwarts Castle itself. Now, speaking of Mr. Brattleby, how great is that name, by the way? He heads up the Crossed Wands Dueling Club, which was another new reveal during this showcase. Crossed Wands is a student-led club at Hogwarts for practicing your dueling skills. It's also a club the professors at Hogwarts are clearly aware of, but let the students go on believing they're actually keeping it a secret. The club was also highlighted in a recent Twitter post from Avalanche. Now, it's here at this dueling club we got our most detailed look yet at the combat in the game, courtesy of game director Alan Tu. And we have quite a few combat reveals to get through, starting with the fact that the R2 button fires off what Avalanche is referring to as a basic shot. The spell effect itself is red, and it's unknown whether or not this spell translates to any specific incantation from the series, such as, say, Flipendo or Stupefy, which both do feature red spell effects. Rather than mapping all magic to one button or even the triggers, Avalanche has instead opted for a system which groups the spells based on two primary categories: essential and slottable. The essential spells can be activated on controllers with the left D-pad button. These are spells needed in very specific contexts, and also spells the devs want available on the controller at all times. Revelio was mentioned as a specific example of an essential spell during the gameplay showcase. At first, I thought we would need to bind and swap out different spells on the left D-pad as needed, but after listening to Alan a few times here, I'm pretty sure he means that the left D-pad spell will change based on the context of where we are in the game and what we're doing at a given time. So while it may be Revelio in one instance, it will be something completely different in another. Now, as for the slottable spells, to help players better understand their function, Avalanche has separated them into different color-coded categories. Alan specifically mentioned damage, force, and control spells during the showcase, but we actually see 4 different color codings. Damage is almost certain to be the red, and I'm thinking purple for force with things like Accio and Depulso, and then yellow for the control spells such as Levioso, which by the way is notably different from Wingardium Leviosa. The latter allows the caster to move the object once it's levitating, whereas the former does not. Now, the color I didn't mention is the one on the left, which is a light blue and contains the spell Lumos. Now, one other interesting note about Lumos here is that it does not appear to have a cooldown, whereas all of the other slottable spells seen during this showcase do have a cooldown. As they're used, the color within the icon is depleted and then begins to refill. Now, I think it's pretty safe to assume there are definitely going to be ways to improve this through things like potions and or upgrading the spells. When it comes to the number of slottable spells, Alan confirmed there will be more than 20. We mostly saw these 4 here during the showcase: Lumos on the left, Levioso on the top, and Accio at the bottom. The one on the right is still a mystery, so let me know in the comments which one you think it could be. Defendo, perhaps? Throughout the rest of the showcase, including the little montage at the end, we got a brief glimpse at some additional spell icons like the purple one here. I think it's probably going to be Depulso, and then 2 of the red ones here, which again are a bit of a mystery. We know red is probably damage, so the left one here I could see being Expulso, Bombarda, or maybe even Reducto. Considering the icon on the right has a wand, I'm thinking Expelliarmus for that one. The yellow one on top shows the open palm of a hand making a stop gesture. And if we were right before about yellow being a control spell, this one should be Impedimenta, which is used to slow down or stop targets. Now, before we get to one of the best announcements I think of the whole showcase, we do have to discuss some of the disappointing announcements as well. And the first one here is confirmation that we won't be playing minigames like Wizard's Chess or Gobstones in Hogwarts Legacy. Just like Quidditch though, both are going to be part of the world, just not playable for us. We've already seen the chessboard in the common rooms, and in the gameplay showcase we talked to an NPC by the name of Zenobia Noak who talks about playing Gobstones. Now, when it comes to other activities around the castle, we already know about the Dueling Club, which we mentioned before, as well as the flying challenges, brewing potions, and all of the vivariums. So it remains to be seen what other activities will be in the game to kind of help fill that gap between the main story. Another unfortunate bit is that house points will not be a core mechanic in the game. They dropped this news as we got a look at the house point counters, which are gorgeous, by the way. And again, like Quidditch, Gobstones, and Wizard's Chess, it's certainly not like they're going outright to just ignore more house points, but my guess is that it ends up being more story-driven than our character earning house points, say, every time we learn a new spell, answer a question correctly in class, etc. Okay, for number 10 here, and what I think is one of the best reveals of the whole showcase, we finally got confirmation that our choices, at least some of them, will matter. Ever since Avalanche updated the official FAQ to say the game will not have a morality system, our choices not mattering had been a bit of a concern from fans, myself included. Thankfully, Alan confirmed this is not the case and that our choices will matter.
The students are a way to kind of like flesh out the school opportunities around it, what we can do, and then those interactions, different interactions with different characters can also offer different choice points for the player. And then some of those things can affect things game-wide. Some of these affect characters' lives, the ending of the game.
And sometimes it's just about you being a little bit of a nice guy or just being a jerk.
Yes, absolutely. So the scale really varies, but those opportunities exist for the player.
The other huge news drop from Alan happened when the player character stepped outside of Hogwarts to take a look at the surrounding area.
And when you see things, like you'll notice a bridge over there, that's a place you can go to and cross. Like everything that you see is a place that you can visit.
Wow.
Did you guys hear that? I actually had to go back and listen to make sure that I heard what he said. Everything you see, you can visit. And this is one of those things that continues to amaze me about Hogwarts Legacy. I mean, the castle alone is going to give us so much to see and explore and do, but then when you throw in the surrounding area, and don't forget about Hogsmeade, it's just so exciting to think about all we're going to be able to do, not only in the castle, but outside as well. When it comes to the castle, one of the biggest questions we still had is how will classes work? And Alan answered this one as well. He confirmed that they opted against a totally simulation type experience. So you don't have to worry about missing class or having to plan out your day around classes in Hogwarts Legacy. He said that while, yes, there are day-night cycles, everything is based around the narrative, and they see it as being similar to different chapters within that narrative. Alan also mentioned that each chapter has its own set of missions that you can choose between as you play the game, and that classes fit within that structure. The gameplay showcase also gave us our first look at one of the dorm rooms, in this case, the Hufflepuff dorm. Chandler made sure to point out the exquisite design of the bedside tables. I also notice how we see what appears to be something similar to a chocolate frog, as well as a pack of Bertie Bought Every Flavor beans. Now, what's interesting about this is that Bertie Bought Every Flavor beans hadn't been invented yet. Bertie Bott himself was not even alive yet in 1890 when the game takes place. So I think that's probably going to be something else. When it comes to chocolate frogs though, things are a little bit more up in the air. Now I'm pretty sure I've mentioned before on this channel that chocolate frog cards wouldn't have been around yet. I've heard a number of people say this. So as I was writing this video, I thought, where the heck do we get that information? So I started doing some digging tonight. And when it comes to the invention of chocolate frog cards, the only thing that I could find is that there was a Daily Prophet article that appeared during the Fantastic Beasts films. And you can see that article right here, or I guess you could say the front page. Now the specific headline you want to look for is in the bottom left corner here. Notice this doesn't say anything about being invented. It only mentions a new packaging. Now, because of the light blue color on this one, I don't think we can say for certain 100% it is a chocolate frog. Now, it could also be an earlier version of peppermint toads, which do have that light blue in their current packaging, which is featured on the official Harry Potter shop website. Now, if you remember back at the State of Play gameplay reveal, we definitely 100% saw a pack of chocolate frogs on the right side of the screen during this scene here in the Room of Requirement. So could we actually have a situation here where the people at Avalanche have caught this particular error with the packaging before most of us in the fandom and have actually already corrected it here in this most updated look at the game? All right, now that we're out of that rabbit hole, let's move on from chocolate frogs because it does appear we'll be able to bring a pet with us to Hogwarts because we see two different owls here in the Hufflepuff dorm room. In one shot, we see this owl, and then in another, we see this owl. No confirmation yet on cats or toads or even the function of these owls. Will we be able to interact with them at all? We don't know that yet. It is also worth pointing out though, the vivariums mentioned in the State of Play gameplay trailer where it seemed as if we'll be able to have a variety of different creatures there and we can help nurse them back to health after rescuing them from poachers. Now there were a few story details mentioned as well. The first, and I think the biggest reveal here, is that the field guide is actually being given to us by the Ministry of Magic. Now a lot of us had had guessed that this was going to be given to us by a Hogwarts professor. Now, perhaps Fig or Professor Weasley is going to have something to do with that, but Avalanche confirmed here in the gameplay showcase that it does in fact come to us from the Ministry of Magic and is a special book for us to help us get acquainted with Hogwarts. And I think this all ties back to the beginning of the game and what our character survives. What is it that makes us not start Hogwarts until our 5th year? That is the big story component that we still don't know. Now, it also seems like we inched a little bit closer to confirming the Hogwarts Legacy headmaster. There was a moment of dialogue here where this character mentioned the former headmistress, Eupraxia Mole.
Rumour is that a former headmistress, Professor Mole, conjured them to protect the contents of certain locked cabinets years ago. Professor Black couldn't be bothered to disenchant the keys, and they appear every few years.
So I think, once again, this is pointing in the direction of Phineas Black being the headmaster while we are at Hogwarts. And the other big reveal with this gameplay showcase was all about the character creator. We finally got a look at the last tab, and through that last tab, we got confirmation that we will be able to name our character both first and last name. Now, this one I think is pretty significant because a lot of us had been speculating, do we descend from a famous wizarding family? Is the last name going to be set? I think a lot of people thought this was a possibility because then characters in the game could actually refer to us by our last name. I mean, how many times have you heard throughout the series people referring to Harry as Potter? But this screen here confirming we will set both the first and last name. Now, in terms of names, I was also struck by the fact that all of the characters, all the students we interacted with throughout the castle, all have unique names. We already mentioned Lucan Brattleby and Zenobia Noke, but even in the dueling scenes, you can see the characters that we are dueling here, in fact, have names as well. Now, it is slightly different when we get outside of Hogwarts. We can see in the very last montage right at the end of the showcase, there are some wizards we're battling here, and they're referring to them as Ashwinder Scouts. So they didn't have actual names, but I think it's pretty cool that all the students we meet and interact with, we're going to be able to see their actual names. So when it comes to research, start doing your research now to see if any of these characters are possibly related to characters that we know in Harry Potter's day. Alan was also asked a question about what can be changed about creating our character once we've started the game. So can we go back and change things? And the answer here is yes and no. You can change things like haircut, hairstyle, hair color, as well as your accessories like the glasses, but you cannot change things like your skin color or your eyes, face type, all of those things, which again makes sense. So the things that are purely cosmetic, you will be able to change those. The other stuff, once you start the game, you're locked in. There are also some things that were missing from the character creator. No body types such as tall and short or heavy and light builds. And then it also doesn't seem like we're going to be able to switch to our left hand. There had been some speculation that maybe we will have a left-handed option after seeing the character on the official art book for the game, but personally I feel like if that was going to be in the game, it would be here somewhere in the character creator. Now, there are so many more details about the character creator, and I just had to make a completely separate video breaking that all down. So if you're curious about that, I'm going to link that here on the right side of your screen now. Check that one out next. And as always, thank you all so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.